Hey guys, I want to do another video today and look at more evidence that we are in the little season. And this will be number 3 on a top 10 list and part of a larger study that we've been doing on my channel over the last few months, answering questions. Are we indeed in the little season prophesied of in Revelation 20? And has the millennial kingdom of Christ already occurred? You see here, all the world's a stage. And this is a famous quote by William Shakespeare. And this video probably won't be as poetic as William Shakespeare's plays, but it will certainly have a lot of twists and turns like a Shakespearean play does. And once you see it, you can't unsee this. Art, illusion, and secrets. And here is a parody of the Mona Lisa, famous painting by Leonardo da Vinci. And if we look closer at the Mona Lisa, is there a secret behind the painting? Well, here's another painting on the right that most say Leonardo da Vinci also painted a few years after the Mona Lisa. The one on the right is the Mona Vanna. And most art scholars agree that this is a portrait of da Vinci's long-term apprentice and suspected lover, Gian Giacomo Caprati. But what some art scholars also think is that the Mona Lisa painted a few years prior is also of the same person. Which brings us to William Shakespeare, who wrote many plays, and those plays were performed in his theater called the Globe. But what Shakespeare was most known for is for his actors, and the fact that the male actors not only played the male roles, but played female roles. And we still see this today in Shakespearean plays. Just like the Statue of Liberty, Lady Liberty. What is hiding behind Lady Liberty? As Shakespearean plays, as the Mona Lisa, if we look closer, could the Statue of Liberty actually not be a lady? And we looked at this on a previous video, looking at the Statue of Liberty. And so check that video out. But you can see the Statue of Liberty on the right here, about a century prior, just after, within the first few years of when I think the little season began, we see a painting of Lucifer, 1797. And this is what this is, this duality that we see. It is after Baphomet, the Luciferian gods, that they worship a male-female false deity. And this is part of the cult that they're in, and the symbols that have been in our culture since then. But Lady Liberty in New York Harbor was not the United States First Lady. So now let's look at the First Ladies of the United States. Begin with Martha Washington, the wife of George Washington, the United States' first president, and leader of the American Revolution. The United States, the Declaration of Independence, signed in 1776. George Washington being a leader of the American Revolution. He was also a Freemason. The Bavarian Illuminati was also founded in 1776 at this very same time. Here's another photo of Martha Washington. And here's a book by Jeremy Thornton, Famous Women of the American Revolution. And Martha Washington on the cover in the center. The lady to Martha Washington's right on that book was John Adams' wife, Abigail, the second First Lady. She wrote letters supporting women's rights. And after John Adams, the third president being Thomas Jefferson, a Freemason, we have James Madison here and his wife, Dolly Madison. Both John Adams and James Madison both had ties to Freemasonry and part of the secret societies. And you can see another photo of Dolly Madison here. Here's photos of all the First Ladies of the United States. And just skimming through here, we see several photos from the late 1800s here. First Lady Harrison, McKinley, Taylor, Pierce, Fillmore, Rachel Jackson, the wife of Andrew Jackson, also a Freemason. First Lady Harrison to the right. First Lady Monroe to the left at the top. Going all the way back to the first four First Ladies that we covered. And continuing down, Lou Henry Hoover in the center here. Eleanor Roosevelt, going to our current First Ladies of today. The First Ladies of the United States. But they weren't the only First Ladies during this era. The beginning of the American Revolution, there was also revolutions throughout. And again, this was the beginning of this transitional period between the end of the Millennial Kingdom and the beginning of the Little Season. This was a new world order. The Luciferians were waiting on this moment in time. They knew exactly when it was going to occur. They knew the exact date. And they were ready to go during this transitional time. So now we see the same thing across the Atlantic during this same era, the early generations after the Little Season began. You can see here Queen Victoria and the old world buildings that the royalty of that time that were placed in positions of power founded. Here's another photo of Queen Victoria. She was born at the beginning of the 19th century. Again, this was a time of turmoil, time of transition. Not only in America, we saw the French Revolution led by Napoleon Bonaparte occurring at the same time, with those Napoleonic Wars lasting several years to not decades, and not only in Europe, but also in Asia and abroad. Again, this was all part of this transitional time. After Queen Victoria, we see here the next queen in line on the British throne was Queen Alexandra of Denmark, who began her reign in the early 1900s. Here's another photo of Queen Alexandra. And another photo of Queen Alexandra. After her reign ended, Mary, Princess Royal, took over the throne. And here is Princess Mary after she was queen. But Great Britain wasn't the only country in Europe that had the first ladies reign over their countries. This is Queen Isabella II of Spain, who reigned during the 1800s. And here is Queen Margherita of Italy. She was Margherita of Savoy, Queen of Italy, and reigned in the late 1800s. Here is Queen Maud of Norway. And again, another picture of Queen Maud of Norway with her child. Here is Emile of Orleans, also known as Maria Amelia, who was the last queen of Portugal. And here's another photo of Emile of Orleans. Maria Amelia, the last queen of Portugal. Going further, we have Elizabeth of Bavaria, the Red Queen of Belgium. And you can see the Red Queen there with her husband. And here is Marie José, the last queen of Italy. And here's another photo of Marie José. So going from the first ladies of the United States and the European nations during this time of the little season, let's now look at other first ladies, and we'll look at this in terms of ladies first, because there was a lot of accomplishments by females during the 1800s that were celebrated. So let's take a look at these women. This is Molly Pitcher. She was a hero of the American Revolution. And you can see another photo of Molly Pitcher here. Catherine Booth, her and her husband founded the Salvation Army. You can see Catherine Booth here. And you can see both John and Catherine Booth pictured together, co-founders of the Salvation Army. William Booth being a famous Freemason, with his quote, "I'm not waiting for a move of God, I am a move of God." Another female in the charitable field in the 1800s, one of the leaders of the American Red Cross, Clara Barton. And you can see Clara Barton here. And you can see another picture here. The founder of the Red Cross was Jean Henry Dunant, who was also the founder of the YMCA and co-winner of the first Nobel Peace Prize in 1901 for his role in founding the International Red Cross movement and initiating the Geneva Convention. He was a Freemason, as you see. Let's go to famous women in the Civil War. From left to right, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Harriet Tubman, and Sarah Rosetta Wakeman. Now, Sarah Rosetta Wakeman was a famous Union soldier who went by her male alias Lyons Wakeman in the war. Here's another photo of Harriet Tubman. And you can see Harriet Tubman was instrumental in the Underground Railroad during the Civil War. Another photo of Harriet Beecher Stowe, a famous author who penned Uncle Tom's Cabin. And Harriet Beecher Stowe's book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, was based on Josiah Henson, an escaped slave who was also a Freemason and a fellow craftsman at Mount Moriah Lodge. Next we have Annie Oakley, a famous American marksman, but she was also a British socialist and feminist and had a lot of contributions in the field of women's rights. Here is another photo of Annie Oakley. She was part of Buffalo Bill's Wild West and Congress of Rough Riders of the World, who went around doing these reenactments of the Wild, Wild West. And here is Buffalo Bill Cody, a famous Freemason, and a quote there. Moving on into the field of religion, we have Martha Hughes Cannon, who was a pioneer in many fields and was part of the Mormon Church, but also went on to become a medical doctor, suffrage leader, and the first female state senator in the United States, as well as doing many charitable works, as you see below. Martha Hughes Cannon. But during this first generation or two of the little season, not only did we see the cult of Mormonism abound, but we saw other cults like Jehovah's Witness. And here, one of the founders of the Seventh-day Adventist movements, the prophetess Ellen G. White. And you can see another photo of Ellen G. White here. Staying in the religious theme, Antoinette Brown Blackwell was the first female ordained minister in the United States. You can see a photo of Antoinette Brown Blackwell. Here's another photo of her in her later years with a quote, "The sexes in each species of being are always true equivalents, equals, but not identical." Moving from the ministry to the medical field, the first female doctor in the United States was Elizabeth Blackwell that you see here. And here's another photo of Elizabeth Blackwell in her later years. From doctor to attorney, the first female lawyer in the United States, Arabella Mansfield. And there's Arabella Mansfield. And here's another photo in Women's History Month honoring the United States' first female lawyer, Arabella Mansfield. Arabella Mansfield made it possible for future famous female attorneys like Myra Bradley here to enter the field of law. And you can see Myra Bradley. Who the contributions of Arabella Mansfield allowed and made possible for her to enter into law during this time of the 1800s in the United States. Going from the ministry to healthcare to law and politics, now let's go to the sciences. Maria Mitchell, the first female astronomer. You can see another picture here of Maria Mitchell and a quote from her, which states, "We especially need imagination in science. It is not all mathematics, nor all logic, but it is somewhat beauty and poetry." So at the beginning of and middle of the little season, we hear the same quotes from the false prophets of scientism as we do today. We can hear Neil deGrasse Tyson say these same very words. Jane Addams, the first female Nobel Prize winner in 1931. Who was an American activist and involved in women's rights. Anna Howard Shaw. Who is Anna Howard Shaw? Well, this is a younger photo of Anna Howard Shaw. And Anna was a women's rights activist and a physician, and also the first female to be ordained a Methodist minister. And you can see Anna Howard Shaw in her later years with another suffrage leader, Susan B. Anthony. And you can see another photo here of Susan B. Anthony, who was famous with women's rights and even had a dollar coin printed, or not printed, but made a few decades ago. And here's another photo of Susan B. Anthony. And here she is with Rachel Foster Avery, another female rights activist. The first mayor, female mayor of the United States. Not the first mayor, the first female mayor of the United States. This is Susanna Salter. I think she was a mayor of a town, a city in Kansas in the 1800s. You can see a portrait on the left of Susanna Salter and on the right with her husband. Marie Curie, who is famous for finding a use for radium, its establishment for cancer treatment. You can see Marie Curie here. And into the 20th century, Rosalind Franklin, who was prominent in the finding of the DNA double helix. She didn't get the accreditation like Watson and Crick did, but she was very instrumental in the discovery of DNA's double helix. A British scientist. Here's another photo of Rosalind Franklin. She was also very prominent in the theory of evolution and teaching that and furthering that false doctrine. And when I looked at these pictures, she reminded me of somebody. And I finally put my finger on it. She looks like Bill Gates' ex-wife to me, that you see here on the right. Bill Gates is also furthering the research of Rosalind Franklin and is into not only Microsoft and computers anymore, but the field of genetics. Here's a quote from Bill Gates. DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software we've ever created. And he's heavily involved in this. In 2018, he backed a startup that prints new DNA, changing the code. Well, let's get back to the early to mid 19th century, where we suddenly began to see orphans and orphanages, insane asylums, and orphan trains. Well, let's look a little closer and see what this was all about in the little season. You can see here all the orphans that suddenly had to be taken care of during this time. And so the nice, kind people of that era built nice orphanages like this one in Paris. And this one in London. Beautiful old world buildings. Almost angelic architecture that these nice charitable people built for the poor little orphans. Here's another one in Grand Rapids, Michigan, postmarked in 1912. The St. John's Orphan Asylum. All of these, by the way, are no longer standing. This one was destroyed shortly after this postcard by a fire. Unbelievable. But let's look a little closer at the caretakers of all these orphanages that were popping up during the first generation or two of the little season. Like these two caretakers here. And this nice family who took care of several orphans. You can see the husband and wife here. There's the husband. There's the wife. And the sweet nuns of the Catholic Church. You can see a nice nun here taking care of an orphan. And this sweet little nun taking care of these orphans. More photos. More photos. And more of nuns who worked at orphanages during the little season. So let's get back to the First Lady topic. And now we're heading into current era. And I want to talk about what we've seen over the last several decades, as I feel this little season is coming to a close. You can see here Eleanor Roosevelt with her husband Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Freemason and Oddfellow member. You can see Eleanor Roosevelt here again. Going to just a few decades ago with Barbara Bush and her husband George. So how the first ladies that we've seen, especially beginning with Martha Washington and then transitioning into the 19th century and the early part and middle even of the 20th century, how can first ladies who once looked like this and this suddenly begin to look like this? And this leads me to the evolution of pharmacy. And since the 1940s, hormone replacement and how to manipulate male and female hormones was becoming more and more popular. At that same time, through the world wars that we've seen in Satan's little season, World War I and World War II, where many people were killed and maimed, and war wounds were made because of these explosives of the weaponry of the little season of the 20th century. We saw the evolution of military medicine through warfare, and this is where the birth of plastic surgery developed. Plastic surgery. And I know a little bit about this, but plastic is from the word plastikos, meaning to shape or mold. And it began as reconstructive techniques to reconstruct horrific war wounds during the first two world wars. But beginning at the same time in the middle and later into the 20th century that we saw the development of more pharmaceuticals, especially in hormone replacement. We also saw advances in plastic surgery. And plastic surgeons learn more and more about male and female anatomy and the differences of the male and female face. But plastic surgeons aren't the only people that know this. A lot of people know this. Artists, for instance, people that draw, they're taught the different anatomies of the male and female face, the different proportions. A sculptor knows what's masculine and knows what's feminine. And it also pertains to the body, where there's different ratios, widths, and heights of the upper, middle, and lower third of the human body, male versus female. And now, over the last couple of decades, we've seen this evolution of these forms begin gender affirmation surgery. And you can see some types of gender confirmation surgeries from male to female, female to male. The first male to female transition surgery was performed in the 1950s. And this is a GI, an army guy named George Jorgensen Jr., who had plastic surgery, hormonal change through pharmaceuticals, and became Christine Jorgensen. And you can see, I'm not sure how old this photo is, you can see the before and after from George Jorgensen to Christine, and then Christine today. And I'm sure that was many years ago, that today picture. And you can see another photo of Christine Jorgensen. And if you didn't know better, you would not know that it was previously George. And this is the era that we're in, the blurring of lines. Like the Robin Thicke song, Blurred Lines. And that's why you can have ladies first, like the first U.S. Attorney General female, Janet Reno, and also served the second longest term as Attorney General in U.S. history. But we remember her, she was born in the late 30s. So she was much older at the beginning of this revolution of hormone therapy and plastic surgery. And she got beat up pretty good, especially on Saturday Night Live skits with a young Will Ferrell. But that's why, with the advent of hormone therapy and depending on how young you go, the results can really be seen. It can really suppress the secondary sexual traits by manipulating the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. And that's why this push is being younger and younger, because you can really see changes by suppressing this and display the opposite sexual traits. But this is why at first you saw Janet Reno's in the 80s who were made fun of by Saturday Night Live, to now seeing this. Victoria's Secret's angels. What's Victoria's Secret? And the evolution of the supermodel. You know, we've always had pretty females. We've always had beautiful models throughout the 1800s into the 20th century, but only in the later 20th century did we begin to see the supermodel. So the supermodels of the 80s, they were born in the 1960s. And this was after this revolution of hormone replacement and plastic surgery began. And I'm not saying all of these had any of that done. I'm just saying they were born at that time when it could have been done. It's like the steroid era in baseball. I don't know if Barry Bonds used steroids, but I know him and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire got a lot bigger and hit a lot more home runs during that time. And here's more 80s models. Going to current, Alessandra Ambrosio, a famous supermodel, a Victoria's Secret spokeswoman, a very beautiful, attractive female model. Here is a trans model on the cover of Elle Brazil. The lines are blurred. Another cover on Elle Brazil and another trans model. And yet another on Marie Claire. Again, lines blurred. Here in French Vogue, another trans model on the cover of Paris Vogue. And Russian Vogue. What are we seeing? We're not sure during the little season. And as we get closer to the end, the lines are getting blurred more and more. But this is part of the little season and the people that give their allegiance to this figure, Lady Liberty, and we see them putting models and other people in situations to honor their small g god. Like Sandra Bullock in Miss Congeniality. Victoria's Secrets, Angels and Demons. Again, what secrets does Victoria have? You can see Victoria's Secret models with their angel's wings. Another Victoria's Secret model with her angel wings. You can see Kate Moss here with goat horns. Why did the fashion elite put models posing like this? It's in honor of their small g god, Baphomet, and what he represents in male-female duality. You can see the female breasts here, the angel wings, the goat horns, the caduceus, a medical symbol, the pharmacy, pharmakia. And this involves all aspects of our culture today, especially the entertainment industry, especially the music industry. You can see here Madonna, one of her many ritualistic performances. They're not creative musicians by any means. They're Luciferians, and they're controlled by them to influence this world today. The vow of silence, holding their finger to their mouth in the shush motion, represents a reminder of Masonic obligation of silence. The very elites within this cult, this club that began at the time of the Little Season, the Illuminatis, the Freemasons, the Luciferians, they know these secrets of the millennial kingdom of Christ haven't already occurred. They know the secret that we are now in Satan's little season. These are just one of the few secrets that they are trying to blind the world from. And that's why they've changed the history books. That's why they've labeled the past millennial kingdom of Christ as the Dark Ages. And that's why when the Illuminati began and the American Revolution and the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the French Revolution and all this turmoil was going on at that time, they called it the Age of Reason and Age of Enlightenment. Because finally they had their light bearer free to follow. The Illuminati, with their symbology that you see over and over and over today in Hollywood and throughout the world. And just a few of their puppets. And their allegiance to Baphomet. And it spans not only in the music industry, not only in Hollywood, but throughout the world. We saw a lot of first ladies there, ladies first in the 1800s, that were humans' rights and, activists of that era. We see the same thing today. This is Greta Thunberg. You can see her Illuminati symbology that she does over and over. She is basically the 21st century Susan B. Anthony. And we see more and more world leaders and more leaders. And just look at a few of these faces. This is who leads the world today. And this is why we see the laws that we see coming through today from the United Nations, from activists such as Greta Thunberg. They're all part of the same club. And they don't want you to know the secrets that they know. And they hide behind a mask and their symbology. And finishing up, that's why we see this more and more today. And the last 20 years, we've really seen this become forefront in the news. But it's because of who rules this world today in this culture that we're in at the end of the little season. It's in honor of their Luciferian God, who wants to confuse the world, wants to hide the past, hide where we are, and hide what's to come. And this agenda that's going on in the world is basically pushing us closer to ultimately their transhumanist goals. And this has all been about getting to that next step of evolution that these Luciferians think they're going to get to. And I've said this for years and years. Transgenderism, all this that we've seen over the last decade or two, is simply a stepping stone to transhumanism, which we are in right now. This transhumanist movement, whether you know it or not, is well underway. It is masked by transgenderism, but this is truly their goal. And this is part of the ritualistic things that they do in the cult that they're in. And that's why so many people are influenced today. We should show everybody love, grace, and mercy in this world, just like Jesus Christ shown us. And most of the people that have been influenced with this agenda that's been going on during the little season, they've just been strictly influenced by it. And they're not part of this bigger picture that I'm showing you here. This is truly, I'm talking about psychopaths. I'm talking about the elite of the elite that are at the heads of all industries, that are heads of economy, education, all branches of science, politics, world leaders, you name it. They have infiltrated themselves into position of powers over the last 200 plus years to get to the moment that we're in today. And I'm definitely not the only one to notice this. There's many, many more. Here's a book, From Transgender to Transhuman by Martin Rothblatt. And review and analysis of his manifesto. Here you see Wild Willing Wisdom presents. So more and more people are talking about this and noticing this. From transgender to transhuman, again, more and more people are talking about this. More and more people are seeing this for what it is. But like I said, at the beginning of this video, once you see this, you can't unsee it. And then now that you see it, then everything that you see within Hollywood and the music industry and then world politics, look at the leaders in the scientific fields, look at the leaders of our educational system, healthcare, the economy, and you're going to see this manifest. You're going to see it more and more as eyes are open. But many people don't want to see it. Cognitive dissonance, and you just don't want to see it. And if you don't see it, then you can't unsee it. But be patient with those people. A lot of these topics here, people aren't going to see immediately. The lies are so big during this little season and the deception is so much. And it's not only just, just your basic being deceived by man. This is spiritual deception. This is spiritual wickedness in high places, leading this in the little season. So be patient with those that haven't seen that we are in the little season yet, and to all the deception that's in the world today. But those of you that are starting to see it, hope you continue to take the blinders off, and just be confident that to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. So as believers, remnant, in this time, in this era of deception, there is a reason for us to be here and a time for us to wake people up. And that's what these videos are trying to do. And I hope that, God willing, we can continue to do so. Grace, peace, God bless.